The ground shook under Commander Veltar Kess's 6 legs as another explosion lit up the sky. He pressed his scaled hand against the window of the evacuation ship and watched his world die. The Kellyan homeworld had been beautiful just 3 days ago. Green forests covered rolling hills, and crystal cities sparkled in the twin suns. Now everything was gray and black. "Commander, we need to leave now," said Dr. Lyra Moth. Her voice was tight with fear. "The plague ships are only 10 miles away." Turned away from the window. The evacuation ship was packed with refugees. Kellyan families huddled together, their blue skin pale with terror. Children cried in their parents' arms. Everyone knew they were running from something that could not be stopped. "How many ships made it out?" Veltar asked. 47, Dr. Moth replied. "Out of 200 cities." Veltar felt sick. 200 cities. Millions of people, all gone. In 3 days, the ship lifted off just as the plague reached the spaceport. Through the rear cameras, Veltar watched the buildings melt. That was what the Void Plague did. It ate everything. Metal, stone, flesh, even the air itself. It left nothing behind but empty space. "Set course for Zephoria Prime," Veltar ordered. The pilot. Emergency speed. The journey to the Confederation capital took 6 hours. Veltar spent the time reading reports that made his heart sink lower with each page. The plague had started on Nexus 7, a mining world on the edge of Confederation. Space. The miners found something deep underground, something that should have stayed buried. At first, the plague moved slowly, consumed the mining equipment, then the buildings, then the people. The Confederation sent ships to help, but the plague ate them too. Every ship, every weapon. Every soldier that touched the plague became part of it. Dr. Moth sat beside him, her forearms working on multiple data tablets at once. "The growth rate is getting faster," she said. "On Nexus 7, it took weeks to consume. The whole planet. On Kellyan space, it only took days." "How long do we have?" Veltar asked. Dr. Moth's silver eyes met his. "If it keeps growing at this rate, maybe 2 standard cycles before it reaches all our worlds." 2 cycles. Less than for Earth months, though Veltar had never heard of Earth at that time. The ship docked at Zephoria Prime's main station. Veltar made his way through corridors filled with refugees from 3 different worlds. The Confederation had 7 member species, but now only 4 remained. The Nexians were gone completely. The Kellyans were scattered across the galaxy. Even the hardy Vorthan had lost 2 of their colony worlds. The Emergency Council was already in session when Veltar arrived. High Chancellor Nixara stood at the center of the Great Hall, her tentacles moving in patterns that showed deep worry. Around her, the remaining leaders of the Confederation argued in loud voices. "We should retreat to the Outer Rim," said General Thax of the Vorthans. His people were warriors, but even they looked beaten. Put as much space as possible between us and the plague. "Running will only delay the end," replied Senator Krill of the Aquarians. "The plague will follow us wherever we go." "Then what do you suggest?" General Thax snapped. "We have tried everything. Our best weapons barely slow it down. Our shields cannot stop it. Our scientists cannot understand it."
High Chancellor Nixara
raised her central tentacle for silence. "Dr. Moth, you have new data?" Dr. Moth moved to the center of the hall. Her voice was steady, but Veltar could see her hands shaking. "The plague is not just eating matter. It is learning from everything it consumes. Every ship we send makes it smarter. Every weapon we use teaches it new ways to spread. So we are making it stronger by fighting it," asked Senator Krill. "Yes," Dr. Moth said. "There is something else. The plague has patterns. Voids certain types of radiation. It moves slower in extreme temperatures. It seems to have trouble with environments that change quickly." "What does that mean?" General Thax asked. Dr. Moth looked around the hall. "It means the plague evolved in a stable environment. It has never faced a truly hostile world." "Our worlds are peaceful," High Chancellor Nixora said. "We have spent centuries making them safe and comfortable. That is the Confederation way." "Maybe that is the problem," Dr. Moth said quietly. The hall fell silent. The idea was too terrible to think about. Their greatest strength, their peaceful civilization, was also their greatest weakness. There is one option we have not considered, Dr. Moth continued. The quarantine zone. Every being in the hall stepped back. The quarantine zone was forbidden. It contained worlds too dangerous for civilized species to visit. Worlds where the environment itself tried to kill everything that lived there. You cannot be serious, General Thack said. Those worlds are death traps. The species that live there are monsters. Are they? Dr. Moth asked. Or are they just evolved to survive in places we cannot imagine? High Chancellor Nixara's tentacles moved in slow, thoughtful patterns. You are talking about the Deathworld species. The ones from the planet called Earth. The humans, Dr. Moth said. Yes, they are killers, General Thack said. Every report says the same thing. They fight everything, including each other. They turn their own world into a weapon. They are too dangerous to contact, but they are survivors, Dr. Moth replied. They have lived on a world that tries to kill them every day. They have fought diseases, disasters, and predators that would destroy any of us in minutes. If anyone can fight the plague, it might be them. The hall erupted in arguments. Some called the idea insane. Others said it was their only hope. Beltar listened to them all, but his mind was already made up. I will go, he said. The arguing stopped. Everyone looked at him. I will take a ship to the Sol system, Veltar continued. I will ask the humans for help. It is a suicide mission, General Thack said. The humans will kill you on sight. Maybe, Veltar said. But if I do nothing, we all die anyway. At least this way, there is a chance. High Chancellor Nixara studied him with her large eyes. You understand what you are asking to do. You want to make contact with the most dangerous species in known space? I want to save our people, Veltar said. That means talking to monsters. Then I will talk to monsters. The vote was close, but it passed. Veltar would take the fastest ship in the Confederation fleet and travel to the quarantine zone. He would try to make contact with the humans and ask for their help against the plague. As the council session ended, Dr. Moth approached him. Commander, I want to come with you. It is too dangerous, Veltar said. I am the only one who truly understands the plague, she replied. If the humans agree to help, they will need that knowledge. Veltar nodded. Then we leave at first light. That night, Veltar stood on the observation deck of Zephyria Prime and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, the plague was spreading. Somewhere else, the humans were waiting. Tomorrow, he would find out if the galaxy's greatest monsters could become its greatest hope. He did not know that he was about to discover something that would change everything he thought he knew about strength, survival, and what it meant to be truly alive. The Confederation ship Silent Dawn shook as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Commander Veltar Kess gripped his command chair and stared at the view screen. The Sol system spread out before them, and it was nothing like what he expected. Sensors are picking up thousands of ships, reported his pilot, Lieutenant Zara. They have stations around every planet, even the dead ones. Veltar studied the readings. The humans had built cities in space around worlds that could not support life. They had mining operations on asteroids that would kill most species just by getting close. They lived everywhere, even in places that should be empty. Are they military ships? But most look like cargo ships, research vessels, and passenger transports. They're just going about their normal business. That surprised Veltar. He had expected to find a system full of warships and weapons. Instead, the humans seemed to treat the deadly void of space like a neighborhood street. Incoming transmission, the communications officer announced. They want to talk. Put it on screen, Veltar ordered. The face that appeared was unlike anything Veltar had seen. The human had pale skin, short dark hair, and small eyes that seemed to look right through him. But what shocked Veltar most was the expression. Instead of anger or suspicion, the human looked curious. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force, the human said. Welcome to the Sol system. We have been waiting a long time to meet you. Veltar blinked in confusion. Waiting. For us? Captain Morrison smiled, showing white teeth. We have been watching your ships at the edge of our space for the past week. We figured you would come closer when you were ready to talk. You knew we were there? Our sensors are pretty good, Morrison said. But do not worry, we did not see it as a threat. We see it as an opportunity. Veltar looked at Dr. Moth, who seemed as confused as he was. The humans were supposed to be violent and unpredictable. This one seemed almost friendly. We need to speak with your leaders, Veltar said carefully. It can be arranged, Morrison replied. But first, do you need any help? Your ship looks like it has been through a rough time. It was true. The Silent Dawn showed damage from their hasty escape from Kellyan's space. Scorch marks covered the hull, and several systems were running on backup power. We can manage, Veltar said. Are you sure? We have repair facilities nearby.
Oh.
And when was the last time your crew had a good meal? The question caught Veltar off guard. When was the last time they had eaten well? It had been days since they left Saphria Prime, and the emergency rations were almost gone. We would appreciate assistance, Dr. Moth said before Veltar could refuse. Morrison's smile grew wider. Excellent. Follow my ship to Station Unity. We will get you fixed up. The human ship that led them was smaller than the Silent Dawn, but seemed much more advanced. It moved through space with an ease that impressed even Veltar's experienced crew. More impressive was how it handled the radiation belt around the third planet. The human ship flew right through energy levels that would cook most living beings. Station Unity was enormous. It orbited between the third and fourth planets, spinning slowly to create artificial gravity. Ships of dozens of different designs docked at its many ports. As they got closer, Veltar realized something amazing. Those are not all human ships, he said. Dr. Moth checked her readings. I see at least 12 different design patterns. The humans are already in contact with other species. It's changed everything. The reports had said humans were isolated, alone in their dangerous system. But here was proof that other species not only survived contact with humans, but worked. With them, the docking process was smooth and professional. Human technicians in environmental suits guided the Silent Dawn to a repair bay. They worked with the efficiency Veltar expected from a military operation. But without the rigid coldness he had seen in other warrior cultures, Captain Morrison met them at the airlock. He was tall for a human with broad shoulders and scars. On his hands that spoke of hard experience, but his handshake was gentle and his voice was warm. Welcome aboard Station Unity, he said. Dr. Lisa Park will be handling the formal first contact procedures. I am just here to make sure you are comfortable.
Ow.
Dr. Park was different from Morrison. She was smaller, with dark skin and bright eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She wore a white coat over simple clothes, and she carried a bag full of what looked like medical equipment. Are any of your crew injured or ill? She asked immediately. First contact protocols require medical screening, but I want to make sure everyone is healthy. We are fine, Veltar said, though he noticed how tired his crew looked. Dr. Park studied them with professional concern. When did you last sleep or eat a proper meal? You all show signs of stress and malnutrition. Before Veltar could answer, she was talking into a small device. Medical to Bay 7. We need nutrition packs suitable for Zephyrian and Kellyan physiology. Prepare quarters for extended rest. That is not necessary, Veltar protested. Of course it is, Dr. Park said. You came a long way to talk to us. The least we can do is make sure you are in good shape for the conversation. She led them through corridors filled with beings from different worlds. Veltar saw tall, thin creatures with multiple arms working alongside short, furry beings with large eyes. All of them seemed comfortable and well-fed. How many species live here? Dr. Moth asked. On this station? About 47 different species, Dr. Park replied. The Sol system overall? Maybe twice that many? Refugees, traders, scientists, diplomats, anyone who needs a safe place to work or live. They entered a large room with tables and chairs, designed for different body types. The smell of food filled the air, and Veltar's empty stomach rumbled loudly. Please sit, Dr. Park said. Food first, then we can discuss whatever brought you to our system. Human staff brought them meals that had been carefully prepared for their species' dietary needs. The food was better than anything Veltar had. Eaten in weeks. As they ate, Dr. Park asked gentle questions about their journey and their health, but avoided asking about their mission. You are not what we expected, Dr. Moth said finally. Dr. Park raised her eyebrows. What did you expect? Warriors. Killers. Beings who would attack us on sight. Dr. Park laughed, but not in a mean way. Well, Captain Morrison is definitely a warrior. And humans can be very dangerous when we need to be. But we are also curious. We have been alone in space for a long time. Finding out that we are not the only intelligent life in the galaxy is the most exciting thing that has ever happened to us. But the reports say humans are violent and unstable, Veltar said. We can be, Dr. Park agreed. But usually only when someone threatens our friends. Or family. Are you planning to threaten our friends or family? No, Veltar said quickly. And we should get along fine, Dr. Park smiled. Now, what brought you all this way? You look like people with serious problems who need serious help. Veltar looked at Dr. Moth, who nodded. It was time to tell the truth. Our Confederation is dying, Veltar said. There is a plague that eats everything in its path. We have lost 3 worlds already. Our weapons cannot stop it. Our science cannot understand it. We came here because we heard humans are survivors. We need to know if you can help us fight something that cannot be fought. Dr. Park's expression changed. The friendly curiosity was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Determination. Plague that eats everything, she said. How fast does it spread? What does it target? Do you have samples or recordings? You want to study it? Dr. Moth asked in surprise. Of course, Dr. Park said. If it is threatening people, then it is threatening our friends. And humans do not abandon their friends. She was already talking into her communication device again. Dr. Park to General Roberts. We have a code first contact with a xenobiological crisis. Request immediate crisis team assembly. She looked back at Veltar and Dr. Moth. General Amy Roberts heads our Alien Relations Division. She will want to hear everything you can tell us about this plague. You will help us, Veltar asked. He could barely believe it. We will try, Dr. Park said. Humans are good at fighting things that seem impossible to fight. It is kind of our specialty. Within an hour, the conference room was filled with humans. Scientists, military officers, doctors, and engineers. They all listened as Veltar and Dr. Moth described the void plague. They asked hundreds of questions and took detailed notes. General Roberts was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. When the briefing was finished, she stood up and looked around the room. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, we have a new mission. People came to us for help, and we are going to give it to them. I want volunteer crews ready to depart for the plague zone within 48 hours. General, one of the officers said, this could be extremely dangerous. We do not know what we are dealing with. Then we better find out fast, General Roberts replied. Because if this plague is as bad as our friends say, it will not stop with their worlds. She turned to Veltar. Commander, I hope you are ready for a long trip. You're going to need guides who know the territory. Veltar felt something he had not felt in weeks. Hope. We are ready, General, he said. As the meeting broke up, Dr. Park approached him. Calm. The research ship Darwin's Dream was unlike any vessel commander Veltar had ever seen. It was built to go places where normal ships would be destroyed in minutes. The hull was thick and scarred from previous missions. The engines were powerful enough to escape from gas giants. Every system had multiple backups. This ship has been to places that would give you nightmares, Commander Alex Rivera said as he showed them around. The core of a neutron star. Surface of a world where it rains liquid metal, inside a black hole's event horizon. How do you survive in such places? Dr. Lyra Moth asked. Rivera shrugged. We build things tough and we fix them when they break. Humans are good at adapting. The joint research team included 6 humans and 4 aliens. Dr. Ben Clark was the lead scientist, thin man with gray hair who looked at everything like it was a fascinating puzzle. Major Kate Foster commanded the military team, a woman with sharp eyes who carried more weapons than most aliens thought possible. The rest of the crew moved with the confident ease of people who had seen danger and survived it. Our first stop is the edge of the plague zone, Rivera announced as they left Sol System. We need to see this thing in action. The journey took 3 days. During that time, The humans did something that amazed the aliens. They studied. They read every report about the plague that the Confederation had gathered. They asked questions about things that seemed completely unrelated to the crisis. "What kind of predators live on your worlds?" Dr. Clark asked during one of their planning sessions. "We eliminated predators centuries ago," Dr. Moth replied. "They were dangerous to our children." "What about diseases?" "We cured all diseases. Our medical technology is very advanced." "Natural disasters? Control our weather and prevent earthquakes? Why do you ask these questions?" Dr. Clark looked thoughtful. "I'm trying to understand what this plague has never encountered before." Darwin's dream dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the plague zone. Through the view screen, they could see the Kellyan Research Station. Bright hope. It had been one of the Confederation's most advanced facilities. Now it was being consumed by the plague. "Look at that," Major Foster said, pointing at the screen. "It is not just destroying the station, it is learning from it." She was right. The plague had sent tendrils of dark matter into every part of the station. As it consumed the metal and technology, the tendrils changed color and shape. The plague was incorporating the station's design into itself. "It's like a virus," Dr. Clark said with interest, "but one that affects both organic and inorganic matter." "It is not like anything we have on Earth," Dr. Rivera said. "Our diseases are either biological or digital. This thing is both." "Maybe that is why it is so hard to fight," Dr. Moth suggested. "Or maybe it is why it will be easy to fight," Dr. Clark said. "On Earth, we have learned that anything that tries to do everything usually is not very good at any one thing." Wow. Humans wanted to get closer to the plague. Much closer. They put on environmental suits and prepared to take a shuttle to the infected station. "You cannot go in there," Veltar said. "Nothing that touches the plague survives." "We are not planning to touch it," Major Foster replied. "We're planning to study it." "The difference is what, exactly?" Dr. Moth asked. "Distance and preparation," Dr. Clark said. "We will stay far enough away to be safe, but close enough to get good data." The shuttle ride to the station was the most terrifying experience of Velta's life. The humans piloted their craft through clouds of plague matter, like they were flying through a storm. They collected samples of the dark substance in special containers while the aliens watched in horror. "This is fascinating," Dr. Clark said, studying his readings. "The plague is not really alive. It is more like a very complex machine that can copy itself." "That makes it worse, not better," Veltar said. "Does it?" Dr. Clark asked. "Machines have rules. They follow patterns. If we can understand the patterns, we can find the weaknesses." Major Foster's team actually went inside the station. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that could destroy small buildings. They moved through corridors that were being consumed by the plague, taking pictures and measurements. "The plague is following the station's power grid," Foster reported. "Over the radio, it is using the electrical systems to spread faster." "What happens if you cut the power?" Dr. Clark asked. "Let us find out," Foster replied. She used a small explosive device to destroy the station's main power core. The plague immediately slowed its advance. The dark tendrils stopped growing and began to pull back toward the areas with the most energy. "It needs power to function efficiently," Dr. Clark said with excitement. "That is useful information." They returned to the Darwin's dream with more data than any Confederation ship had ever gathered about the plague. But the humans were not finished. We wanted to try something that seemed completely insane. "We want to expose the plague to Earth organisms," Dr. Clark announced during their next planning meeting. "That is suicide," Dr. Moth said. "The plague will consume your organisms and become stronger." "Maybe," Dr. Clark said, "or maybe Earth organisms will fight back. My planet has been dealing with hostile life forms for billions of years. Everything on Earth has evolved to survive in conditions that would kill most life in the galaxy." "Give us an example," Veltar said. Dr. Clark thought for a moment. "There is a bacteria that lives in our deepest oceans, near volcanic vents. The water there is hot enough to melt metal. The pressure would crush your ship. The chemicals in the water are poisonous to most life forms. But this bacteria does not just survive there. It thrives. It eats sulfur and heavy metals that would kill anything else? How does that help us? Dr. Moth asked. If something that tough meets the plague, which one do you think will win? The humans set up a controlled experiment in the ship's laboratory. They created a sealed chamber and introduced a small sample of plague matter. Then they added Earth bacteria that Dr. Clark had brought from his homeworld. The aliens expected the bacteria to be consumed immediately. Instead, something amazing happened. The bacteria began to attack the plague. Look at this, Dr. Clark said, pointing to his microscope display. The bacteria are not just resisting the plague, they are eating it. The plague matter tried to adapt, changing its structure to defend itself. But the bacteria adapted faster. They had been evolving on a hostile world for millions of years. They knew how to fight. This is incredible, Dr. Moth said. How is this possible? Competition, Dr. Clark replied. On Earth, everything competes for resources. The strong survive and the weak become food. Your worlds are peaceful, so your organisms never learn to fight. Earth organisms never learn to do anything else. Major Foster was watching the experiment. With professional interest? So you're saying your planet is basically a weapons factory? In a way, yes, Dr. Clark said. Every life form on Earth is a weapon that has been tested in combat for millions of years. And you want to use those weapons against the plague? I want to see what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. The experiment continued for hours. The Earth bacteria completely consumed the plague sample. When they were finished, they began to reproduce, creating more bacteria that carried the ability to fight plague matter. They are not just immune to the plague, Dr. Clark explained. They are actively hostile to it. The plague cannot adapt fast enough to survive their attacks. Commander Rivera had been watching quietly. So what are you suggesting, Doc? I am suggesting we go home and turn Earth into a plague-fighting factory, Dr. Clark said. We create billions of organisms designed to hunt and destroy plague matter. Then we release them into infected space. You want to weaponize your entire biosphere? Veltar asked. Our biosphere has been weaponized for millions of years, Dr. Clark replied. We are just pointing it in a new direction. That is the most terrifying thing I have ever heard, Dr. Moth said. Good, Major Foster said. Terrifying is what we do best. The journey back to Earth took 4 days. During that time, the humans refined their plan. They would use their planet's most aggressive organisms to create a biological weapon that could hunt down and destroy plague matter anywhere in the galaxy. You realize what you were proposing? Veltar said to Dr. Clark as they approached the Sol system. You want to infect the entire galaxy with Earth life forms. We want to inoculate the galaxy, Dr. Clark corrected. Like a vaccination? We introduce Earth organisms that will prevent the plague from spreading. If your organisms decide to consume everything else, Dr. Clark smiled. Then we will have traded one problem for another. But at least the new problem will be alive. Dead is dead, but alive can be negotiated with. As Earth grew larger on the view screen, Veltar realized he was about to witness something that no alien had ever seen before. He was about to watch humans turn their death world into a weapon for saving the galaxy. Are you ready for this? Commander Rivera asked. Veltar looked at the blue and white planet that had produced these impossible beings. I do not think anyone could be ready for this. That is the point, Rivera replied. If we are not ready for it, the plague definitely is not ready for it. The Darwin's Dream entered Earth's orbit, carrying data that would change the course of the war against the Void Plague. In the ship's laboratory, Earth bacteria continued. Dr. Sam Torres stood in front of the largest biological laboratory Commander Veltar had ever seen. The facility was built inside a mountain in North America, deep underground where nothing could escape. Through thick glass windows, Veltar could see dozens of contained environments that looked like pieces of different worlds. Welcome to the Extreme Life Research Center, Dr. Torres said. This is where we study the toughest organisms on Earth, and where we are going to build your plague killers. Dr. Lyra Moth pressed her face against one of the windows. Inside the chamber, she could see what looked like a small ocean. The water glowed with strange colors and bubbled constantly. What lives in there? She asked. Bacteria that eat radiation, Dr. Torres replied. They live around nuclear reactors and actually get stronger when exposed to deadly energy. We think they might be perfect for fighting the plague. Colonel Maria Santos joined them as they toured the facility. She was a tall woman with scars on her arms and a no-sense attitude that reminded Veltar of the best military officers he had known. "We have been working around the clock since your data arrived," she said. 24 hours a day, teams of scientists have been testing different organisms against plague samples. They moved to another chamber that contained what looked like a desert made of crystals. Strange worm-like creatures moved through the crystal formations, leaving trails of sparkling dust behind them. Sandworms from the Sahara Desert, Dr. Torres explained. They live in conditions that would kill most Earth organisms. No water, extreme heat, constant radiation from the sun, have survived unchanged for millions of years because they are perfect at what they do. Which is what? Veltar asked. Things that try to invade their territory. Dr. Ryan Lee appeared from behind a bank of computers, his arms full of data tablets. He looked tired but excited. "The results are better than we hoped," he said. "We have tested 47 different Earth organisms against plague matter. 39 of them not only resist the plague but actively hunt it down." "Hunt it?" Dr. Moth asked. "They treat plague matter like food," Dr. Lee explained. "The plague tries to consume them, but they consume the plague faster. It is like watching a pack of wolves attack a sheep." Colonel Santos led them to the main testing area. It was a huge chamber with multiple sealed sections, each one containing a different experiment. In one section, Veltar could see dark plague matter being attacked by something that looked like green slime. "That is a modified algae from our Pacific Ocean," Santos said. "We enhanced its natural abilities to break down complex molecules. Now it can dissolve plague matter in seconds." In another section, tiny insects swarmed over plague samples, reducing them to dust in minutes. "Army ants," Santos explained. "We taught them to recognize plague matter as a threat to their colony. Now they attack it like they would attack anything that tries to hurt their family." Dr. Torres showed them his greatest success. In a chamber that looked like the inside of a volcano, bright orange organisms moved across plague matter like a living fire. "Heat-loving bacteria from Yellowstone National Park," he said. "They live in water that is hot enough to cook most life forms. The plague cannot adapt to their environment, but they love eating plague matter." "How do you control them?" Veltar asked. "What stops them from consuming everything else?" "Programming," Dr. Torres replied. "We modified their genetic code so they only target specific molecular patterns. They will eat plague matter all day, but they ignore everything else. And if your programming fails," Dr. Torres looked serious, "then we have bigger problems than the plague. But we have tested these organisms for weeks. They only attack what we tell them to attack." The next phase of the project was the most ambitious thing Veltar had ever heard of. The humans wanted to test their biological weapons on a real plague outbreak. They were going to deliberately infect part of Earth with the plague. "You want to bring the plague to your homeworld?" Dr. Moth asked in shock. "Just a small sample," Colonel Santos said. "In the most controlled way possible." "There is no controlled way to handle the plague," Veltar protested. "It will consume your entire planet." "Not if our organisms work," Dr. Lee said. "And if they do not work, we need to know that before we send them into space." The test site was in the Australian outback, far from any cities or towns. The humans had built a massive containment facility in the middle of the desert. Walls of energy surrounded an area the size of a small city. Inside the walls, they had recreated different environments from across the galaxy. "If the containment fails, we can sterilize the entire area with nuclear weapons," Santos explained. "The desert will recover. It always does." "You are willing to destroy part of your own world to test this?" Veltar asked. "We are willing to risk part of our world to save all of it," Santos replied. The test began at dawn on a Tuesday. Scientists released a small sample of plague matter into the containment area. The dark substance immediately began to spread, consuming the artificial landscape just as it had consumed Confederation worlds. Then the humans released their biological weapons. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Where the plague had been, Spreading like wildfire, it suddenly stopped. The Earth organisms attacked from every direction. Bacteria consumed it from within. Insects ate it from the surface. Plants grew through it and broke it apart. "Look at Sector 7, Dr. Lee called out from his monitoring station. "The algae has completely cleared that area. Not a trace of plague matter left. Sector 12 is clean too," another scientist reported. The army ants finished their work. In under an hour, within 6 hours, the plague sample was completely destroyed. The Earth organisms had not just stopped it. They had hunted it down and eliminated every trace of it from the test area. "Now what?" Dr. Moth asked. "Now we scale up," Colonel Santos said. "Start growing these organisms in massive quantities, enough to seed entire star systems." Dr. Torres was already working on the next phase. "We need delivery systems, ways to get the organisms to infected areas quickly and efficiently." "Ecosystem bombs," suggested Dr. Lee. "Devices that can rapidly establish Earth-style biomes on any world." "How long will that take?" Veltar asked. 2 weeks to build the first batch," Santos replied. "Another week to load them onto ships. Could have the first wave ready for deployment in a month." A month. Veltar could not believe it. "You can create a weapon to fight the plague in." "Just 1 month? We already created the weapon," Dr. Torres said. "It is called Earth. We are just packaging it for export." The next 2 weeks were a blur of activity. Human factories worked around the clock to produce ecosystem bombs. Scientists fine-tuned the organisms to work in different environments. Engineers designed delivery systems that could spread Earth life forms across entire planets. Chief engineer Lucy Gray showed Veltar the first completed ecosystem bomb. It was about the size of a large missile, but instead of explosives, it contained millions of Earth organisms in suspended animation. When this hits a planet's surface, it will release organisms designed for that specific environment, she explained. Desert organisms for desert worlds, ocean organisms for water worlds. The organisms will establish themselves and begin hunting any plague matter they find, and they will not harm the native life. They should not, Lucy said. But honestly, most Confederation worlds do not have much native life left anyway. The plague consumed most of it. The first test came sooner than expected. A Confederation scout ship reported that the plague had reached the edges of Zephyrian space. The home system of the Confederation government was under direct threat. "We are ready," Colonel Santos announced. "We have 50 ecosystem bombs loaded. Onto the fastest ships in the Earth fleet. We can be at Zephyria Prime in 72 hours. Admiral Tom Hayes, the fleet commander, studied the tactical displays. "This is our first real test. If it works, we save the Confederation. If it fails, we'd probably make things worse." "It will work," Dr. Torres said with confidence. Earth's life has been preparing for this fight for millions of years. They just did not know it until now. The fleet departed from Earth orbit at maximum speed. Veltar stood on the bridge of the flagship and watched his homeworld grow larger on the screen. Zephyria Prime was partially consumed by plague matter, dark tendrils spreading across continents like a disease. "Beginning deployment," Admiral Hayes announced. The ecosystem bombs launched from their ships like a rain of meteors. They struck the planet's surface in predetermined patterns, each one releasing its cargo of Earth organisms into the infected environment. "Sensors are picking up immediate changes," reported the science officer. "The plague advance has stopped in multiple locations." "Give it time," Dr. Torres said. "The organisms need a few hours to establish themselves and begin reproduction." Veltar watched in amazement as his world began to fight back. Where the ecosystem bombs had landed, the dark plague matter was being pushed back. Green and brown patches appeared as Earth life forms spread across the surface. "It is working," Dr. Moth whispered. "It is actually working." By the end of the day, half the planet was clear of plague matter. By the end of the week, Zephyria Prime was completely clean. The Earth's organisms had not just stopped the plague. They had eliminated it entirely and begun the process of rebuilding the world's ecology. Phase 1C. Admiral Tom Hayes stood on the bridge of his flagship, the New Frontier, and watched the largest fleet in galactic history prepare for battle. 200 human ships floated in formation alongside 300 Confederation vessels. It was the first time in history that humans and aliens had fought together as true allies. "Final fleet status report," Admiral Hayes called out. All ships report ready for Operation Cleanup, replied his communications officer. Ecosystem bombs loaded and armed. Biological weapons teams standing by. Commander Veltar Kess joined the admiral at the command station. His own ship, the Silent Dawn, had been repaired and upgraded with human technology. Now carried enough Earth organisms to seed an entire world. Are you certain about this? Veltar asked. We are about to attack the plague's home system. If we fail, there will be no retreat. We will not fail, Admiral Hayes said. The plague has been winning because it never faced real opposition. That changes today. The target was Nexus 7, the mining world where the plague had first appeared. Intelligence reports showed that the plague had turned the entire system into a massive breeding ground. Dark matter filled the space between planets. Plague ships moved in endless patrols. It was the heart of the infection. All ships, this is Admiral Hayes, the commander announced over the fleet communication system. Today we take back what the plague stole. Today we show this galaxy that Earth stands with its friends. All ships execute Operation Cleanup. Fleet jumped too faster than light speed. The journey to Nexus 7 took 8 hours. When they arrived, even the human crews were shocked by what they saw. The entire star system was black. The plague had consumed everything. Planets, moons, asteroids, even the space stations were gone. In their place was a writhing mass of dark matter that stretched from one end of the system to the other. Dear God, whispered Captain Danny Walsh. From his position, aboard the assault ship, Earth's hammer. It ate everything. Dr. Rachel Kim checked her readings from the science vessel Darwin's Legacy. The plague mass extends for billions of miles. This is not just an infection anymore. This is a plague ecosystem. Then we give it a new ecosystem to deal with, Admiral Hayes said. Dr. Kim, begin biological bombardment. Captain Walsh, take your teams to the core installations. The battle began with a rain of ecosystem bombs. Human ships launched thousands of the devices into the plague mass. Each bomb carried a different type of Earth organism designed to work in the specific conditions they would encounter. The effect was immediate. Where the bombs detonated, the dark plague matter began to change color. Green algae spread through the infection like wildfire. Orange bacteria consumed the plague's mechanical components. Swarms of modified insects attacked the larger plague. Structures, it is working, Dr. Kim reported. The plague is trying to adapt, but our organisms are adapting faster. Captain Walsh led his special forces teams in armored shuttles toward the plague's central processing nodes. These were massive structures that the plague used to coordinate its attacks across the galaxy. Destroying them would blind the infection and slow its spread. It's his wolf team, Walsh reported over the radio. We are approaching the first core. The plague is throwing everything it has at us. Through the view screen, Veltar could see plague ships attacking the human shuttles. The dark vessels moved like living things, twisting and changing shape as they fought. But the human pilots flew their ships like they were part of their own bodies, dodging attacks that should have been impossible to avoid. Wolf Team, you have plague interceptors closing on your position, Admiral Hayes warned. Copy that, Admiral, Walsh replied. Let them come. We brought party favors. The human shuttles suddenly released clouds of what looked like glowing dust. When the plague ships flew through the clouds, they began to dissolve. The dust was actually microscopic Earth organisms that consumed metal and organic matter at incredible speed. That is brilliant, Dr. Lyra, Moth said from her position on the Silent Dawn. They turned their defensive systems into weapons. Chief. Engineer Lucy Gray was coordinating the technical assault from her command ship, the Prometheus Rising. Her teams had developed a new type of ecosystem bomb specifically for this mission. Deploying terraform charges, she announced, these will establish Earth-style biomes in the plague's core systems. The terraform charges were larger than normal ecosystem bombs. When they detonated, they did not just release organisms. They created entire miniature ecosystems in the middle of the plague mass. Suddenly, sections of the infection were filled with earth plants that consumed everything around them. The plague cannot process this, Dr. Kim reported with excitement. It has never encountered aggressive plant life before. It does not know how to fight something that attacks and defends at the same time. Captain Walsh's teams reached the first core facility. It was a massive structure that looked like a cross between a computer and a living brain. Plague matter pulsed through its corridors like blood through veins. Beginning core assault, Walsh reported. Deploying biological charges. His teams placed special devices throughout the facility. These contained Earth organisms that had been designed specifically to attack plague control systems. When they activated, the organisms began consuming the plague's central processing units. Core 1 is going dark, Walsh announced. The plague is losing coordination in sectors 7 through 12. The effect was visible across the battlefield. Plague ships that had been moving in perfect formation suddenly began flying into each other. Dark matter that had been spreading and organized. Patterns started moving randomly. Core 2 is our next target, Walsh said. But we have a problem. The plague is adapting. It is sending more ships to protect the remaining cores. Then we adapt to, Admiral Hayes said. All ships implement Plan Omega. It was the most dangerous part of their strategy. Instead of fighting the plague from the outside, they were going to attack it from within. Human ships would fly directly into the plague mass and release their biological weapons at point-blank range. This is insane, Veltar said. The plague will consume your ships. Not if we move fast enough, Admiral Hayes replied. Human ships are built for hostile environments. Okay. We can survive in that mess long enough to do our job. The human fleet split into attack formations and dove into the plague mass. Veltar watched in amazement as ships designed for Earth's deadly environment pushed through substances that would destroy normal vessels in seconds. This is the new frontier, Admiral Hayes reported from inside the plague mass. Releasing ecosystem charges directly into the plague's digestive systems. The biological weapons exploded inside the plague like bombs going off in a living creature. Earth organisms spread through the infection's internal structures, consuming it from within. Core 2 is down, Captain Walsh announced, moving to Core 3. Core 4 is under attack by Blue Team, reported another human commander. 1 by 1. The plague's control centers fell to human assault teams. Each victory weakened the infection's ability to coordinate its defenses. The dark matter that had seemed so organized began to collapse into chaos. Dr. Kim made the most important discovery during the final assault. Admiral, I am reading massive plague die-offs in sectors 15 through 20. The Earth organisms are not just attacking the plague. They are converting it. Converting it to what? Admiral Hayes asked. To Earth life, Dr. Kim replied. The organisms are breaking down the plague matter and using it as raw material to create more Earth life forms. They are terraforming that plague mass into a living ecosystem. The final core fell just as the sun set on the third day of battle. Captain Walsh and his teams emerged from the plague facility as it crumbled around them. The last of the plague's central processing units had been consumed by Earth bacteria. All cores destroyed, Walsh reported. The plague has lost central coordination. Without its control centers, the plague mass began to collapse. Earth organisms spread through the infection like a green wave, consuming the dark matter and replacing it with living ecosystems. Within hours, the dead system was alive again. Mission accomplished, Admiral Hayes announced. The plague's home base has been neutralized. But the victory at Nexus 7 was just the beginning. Over the next 6 months, human Confederation fleets attacked plague installations across the galaxy. Every infected world was hit with ecosystem bombs. Every plague ship was hunted down and destroyed. The Earth's organisms proved to be perfect plague hunters. They adapted to any environment, consumed any form of plague matter, and spread faster than the infection could retreat. World after world was liberated and restored to life. The final battle took place above Kellyan Prime, Dr. Moth's homeworld that had been lost in the first days of the crisis. The planet was completely black when the Liberation Fleet arrived. No one expected to find anything alive. But when the ecosystem bombs detonated, something miraculous happened. Not only did the Earth organisms consume the plague, but they found Kellyan life forms that had somehow survived deep underground. The Earth's bacteria actually helped the native life recover, creating a hybrid ecosystem that was stronger than either species alone. My world lives again, Dr. Moth said with tears in her eyes as she watched forests grow. Where plague matter had been just hours before, 6 months after the first human ship, HFY